Welcome to High Fantasy Stories. Today's title is Troll Wins the Lottery. The pungent aroma of sizzling ogre onions and troll tuber paste wafted through the dingy alleyways of Underbridge. Gary the troll stood behind his battered food cart, flipping the sizzling patties on the well-worn grill with a look of determination etched across his craggy green features. This was his daily grind, peddling his magically delicious street food to the hurried denizens of the city's underbelly, all in the hopes of scraping together enough coins to put a roof over his head and some stale bread in his belly. But lately, business had been leaner than a starving goblin. A sour grunt escaped Gary's lips as the ancient grill sputtered and died, plumes of acrid smoke billowing forth. Ah, Nash, not again! With a frustrated kick, he roused the temperamental magical fire core, finally getting it to spark back to life. Just then, a brutish ogre lumbered by, jostling the rickety cart hard enough to send a whole tray of soiled patty mix crashing to the filthy ground. "Hey! Watch where you're stomping, you blubberin' lummox!" Gary hollered after the ogre, shaking his meaty fist in vain. With a groan, he collected what remained of his provisions, wondering how he'd survive another day on such pitiful earnings. Gary trudged home in the dwindling evening light, his empty coin pouch and rumbling stomach an all-too-familiar weight slung over his shoulder. As he passed by the lavish storefronts and bustling bistros of the Citadel's finer districts, pangs of longing tugged at his heart. He remembered a simpler time when his family's food cart had been the most celebrated in all the realm. Their Signatura Radcap burgers and Leichenfries Diamid culinary excellence. But those days were gone, lost to war, financial ruin, and a spiral of bad luck that had landed Gary in the lowest rungs of Underbridge's squalid ghettos. "Someday," he muttered wistfully, "someday I'm gonna make it back to the top." Gary nearly tripped over an old gnarled root, so lost was he in his melancholy reverie. As he stooped to unstick his cloven hoof, he noticed a crumpled paper bag lying by the path's edge, forgotten or discarded. His troll sniffer twitched as enticing whiffs of something sweet and savory wafted from within. Curiosity piqued, he scooped up the mysterious bag and carefully pried it open. Land's blessing! Gary's eyes bulged at the unexpected bounty, scraps of sugared flare fruit, half-assaulted Mornray haunch, and a crumpled but unmistakable lottery balm leaf. Could this be the lucky break he'd been hoping for? With trembling hands, Gary smoothed out the balm leaf lotto parchment and studied the strings of runes etched across it. Despite his excitement, the troll's hopes sank as he compared the symbols to the official winning digits posted on a nearby wall slab. It couldn't be. By some unfathomable stroke of luck, he'd stumbled upon the jackbulg, the grand prize ticket that promised ostentatious wealths beyond his wildest imaginings. At that moment, the destitute chef's mind raced with visions of living amongst the upper crusts once more, immersed in the luxuries and courtly splendors he'd been cruelly denied for so long. In a whirlwind of good fortune, Gary found himself whisked away from the squalor of Underbridge into a ritzy manor hold in the gleaming spires of Opalcrest. Surrounded by finery and opulence at every turn, the once penniless troll began living his lotto dream to the fullest. Sumptuous feasts of cockhawk and filter wine, therapeutic lava rock baths, premium coin massages, indulgences he'd only read about in storybooks, now became his daily standard. He commissioned Underbridge's most renowned magical chefs to cater his every culinary whim, savoring delicacies and long-lost family recipes he'd been deprived of for far too long. But as sublime as the lavish trappings were, they could never quite scratch the lingering itch of his one true passion, cooking. It wasn't long before the novelty of excessive leisure and overindulgence began wearing thin on Gary's grounded sensibilities. He found himself drifting back to the open-air markets and communal hearths of the outer villages, watching the humble food vendors hard at work with a newfound appreciation. The smells of searing meat over crackling wormwood spits, the sights of doughy mush cakes frying to a perfect golden crisp. These were the simple pleasures and honest labors that had once brought him such fulfillment and pride as a master chef. In that bustling midst, Gary remembered his purpose, to bring joy through his craft and awaken the essential magic of flavor. With a determined glint in his eye, he gathered the finest enchanted ingredients and got to work. Much to the confusion of his newly wealthy peers, Gary set up an unassuming little food cart in one of the most upscale boulevard rings, quickly becoming the talk of high society. For at this humble roadside grill, Gary served up dishes that defied all expectations. Richly spiced radcap medallions drizzled in smoky pyrrelief aioli, bioluminescent cudge dripping from crystalline bread cones, and of course, his legendary family recipe burgers made with only the most premium Razorback and Tower Top mushroom blend. What made these meals truly magical, however, was the passion and culinary soul Gary poured into every creation, honoring generations of Trollkind's cherished culinary tradition. News of Gary's elite street food quickly spread like wildfire throughout the higher echelons of nobility. Diplomats and dignitaries from across the realm flocked for just a taste of the splendors this sidewalk chef was serving up. With each succulent bite, every finely tuned explosion of flavors across the palate, Gary's dishes elevated what common street grub could achieve to sublime new heights. For the first time in his life, the seasoned troll was receiving the true respect, admiration, and abundant gratitude he deserved as a culinary artist. No longer did he have to struggle in obscurity. His unbridled skill and love for his craft was finally being heralded and celebrated. Though lavished with riches and blessed with supreme success, Gary never lost touch with his roots or the generosity of spirit that had sustained him through darker times. On that same dingy backstreet of Underbridge where he'd once hawked his wares as a starving chef, a young goblin lad could now be seen cheerfully tending to his family's ramshackle food cart, peddling charred scrap snacks and mulled moss wine to the passers-by. As Gary came strolling up in resplendent jeweled vestments, the scruffy lad's face fell, certain he was about to be shooed away yet again. But instead, the great chef flashed that unmistakable troll grin and reached into his robes. From a glittering coin purse, he produced a small drake-scale statuette, an enchanted token that would bless the poor lad's cart with an endless bounty of delectable provisions. As the goblin gaped in awestruck wonder, Gary gave him a hearty wink and rumbled, "Keep cooking, kid. And if you ever need old Gary's counsel, you know where to find me." With that, the benevolent master troll sauntered off, eager to keep sharing his culinary wisdom and magical touch with the next generation of dreamers. For in the end, that was the greatest recipe for a life well savored. Consider subscribing and have a magical day.